My name is Sam Thompson. I'm an Edinburgh tour guide and I've been a tour guide for 22 years. Edinburgh born and bred. This is where I'm based, but I do all over Scotland. So we're on the Water of Leith. So this is a river that runs through Edinburgh. It was a very industrial river. It was used, there was lots and lots of mills. Oh, so you see the ducks. But what we're going to be looking at today is the Dean Village. Oh, look at the reflection, isn't this beautiful? Now the water is looking really dark. It's always got a kind of brown hue to it anyway because of the peat. It dyes the water that kind of brown colour. But we have had a lot of rainfall, so it's actually quite high at the moment as well. But this is good. When it's a kind of milky brown, that means all the silt and everything's getting churned up from the bottom. Now it is quite noisy at this section, so once I start to come down, I'm not going to say anything until I get to the bottom, just because the power of the water is quite loud. So yeah, and it was to channel the water so we could get more power out of it. It is still very high, but as we're looking down, you can start to see this little gravelly area here. Normally you can get down and stand on there, but because we've had so much water coming out of the skies lately, the river's really high. But again, you can see the wall, sort of the retaining wall here, and then you have houses above. We are actually in a valley, and once we get further round, you'll really be able to see that. Now, the Water of Leith doesn't normally flood, but it has flooded recently, much to my horror. But that's another story. I'll tell you when we get there. Now, it's a really lovely place to walk along, because half the time you don't even realise you're in a city. Here we can see it. We can see the houses, but there's parts of the Water of Leith where you think you're in the wilds. I don't know if you can hear the birds, but they're absolutely lovely. So yeah, now just ahead of us, that's the Dean Village. The yellow buildings, that's the Hawthorne Bank buildings. But there's a lovely little pedestrian bridge just in front of us. It dates back to the end of the 1800s, and it's been closed for a couple of years, but it finally got the finances to restore it. So the metalwork's all been sorted out, and the wooden decking has been put back down. They've put new decking in, so it should last us another 100 years hopefully. Now where the bridge is basically where the original ford for the river was. So the original shallow point for crossing was just under where the bridge is. So if you were coming from Edinburgh and going to South Queensferry, you would come down into the Dean Village, cross the river, the Water of Leith here, and then go back up Dean Path the other side, which I'll show you in a little while. Where is the sun? It's quite bright. Now, I said that there was a flood. It flooded a couple of weeks back. So to the second line of stonework just here, so you've got one row, two rows, it was flooded to here. And I had to wade through it on a tour, which was a very interesting experience, shall we say. Something I never thought I would do as an adult, go paddling in the Water of Leith. Now I'm going to take us up onto the bridge so you can maybe try and get some nice postcards. This is Well Court, and we're going to have a look at that in a moment once we've been onto the bridge. Now you can see it's quite steep here getting up. These are sets. A lot of people call them cobbles, but they're man-shaped, so they're kind of brick-like. Volcanic material, basalt, dolerite. So yeah, they can be very slippy when it's wet, so just bear that in mind. Right, let's see if we can get this. There's a shadow of the building. We'll stand there and hopefully the sun won't get in the way of the pictures. There. Okay, so we'll just swing round. Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that beautiful? There's their private garden. So they actually, where the tree is and the shrubs, that's the private garden for the residents of Well Court. And it's a beautiful building. So we'll just head back down. Right, it's so nice the sun's out. Let's hope that's a sign of things to come and we're going to have a really nice summer. That would be fantastic. Now, over on the left here where we've got these new 1980s buildings, which are basically boxes, they're not pretty at all. There had been a tannery, there had been a brewery, and lots of mills. The last mill in Nadine was grinding wood flour for linoleum. And it closed down in the 1970s because there wasn't adequate ventilation and there was a lot of dust in the air, and it basically caught and there was an explosion which ended the mill. So that was the last mill. Now here you can see it says dam side. So we're looking at the dam head weir there. And you can see you've got all this 1980s architecture where there was mills. There had actually been a tannery at the side of the Norloch in the heart of the city, and it moved to the Dean village. Now here as we look up you can see these are from the 1880s, kind of the same idea as Well Court in that it's got the highlighting with the red sandstone. The round tower bit in the middle, his fingers coming in here, this thing, that's the staircase, the spiral staircase, which is what you see in lots of places. No lifts in these buildings. Now Well Court itself is beautiful. You can see the date stone, 1884. I'll just come over and stop so you can get you want to get a postcard of it there. Oh look, you've got the reflection of the building behind in the windows, that's so nice. So it's John Ritchie Finlayson. He was the proprietor of the Scotsman Newspaper. He was a philanthropist. He lived above the village and he could see that the village was squalid conditions, really run down, and he decided he wanted to do something about it for the working class. So he actually he built Well Court. He hired an architect and he built Well Court for the workers. Very strict rules though, you know, you had to be home by a certain time. The rent was between £7 and £12. What was quite advanced for the time was the fact that they had indoor plumbing. So they had a toilet, a convenience in their actual flat. They didn't have to go out and share the one on the landing or indeed in the garden. Now the stair here, number 19 to 30, you can see it is open all the way up. So it's got a good fresh air supply. Very arts and crafts. Well Court. Now there were strict rules, you weren't allowed to come home drunk. Oh, look at the flowers, isn't they gorgeous? You couldn't come home drunk. There was a factor who looked after the area and the buildings and the tenants. So the factor's office is actually where this tower is. So you've got the clock tower, so you always know what time it is. On the ground floor was the factor's office and his accommodation, and upstairs there's a hall, and the hall would be used for reading, education, parties, weddings, that type of thing. And then on a Sunday it was used for church. It was used for a church, but there was 3 different ministers that would come in. So there was 3 different congregations. So it's a very well thought out, well planned area here. So yes, the door's open. And then just round here is the private garden for the residents. So that's what we were looking at when we were standing on the bridge. We were looking there. So there's a lovely bench and things. Now, just above the door, you can see some of the detail. You've got 1884. And then as we come round, you can see some of the rooftops. Now the World Heritage Fund actually helped with the restoration, and it was a very sympathetic restoration. It was only if something needed fixed that they did it. So you can see all these little windows, the little panes of glass still survive. This is how it was originally, whereas a lot of places they would take these windows out and put in new double glazing, that kind of thing. Now this is a communal drying green. So if you don't have space inside your property, you could come out and you could hang your washing here. Most of the tenements in Edinburgh and all over Scotland have communal drying greens for that purpose. So yeah, now the Scotsman Newspaper was the biggest newspaper in Scotland because it was the first newspaper to publish the football results on the day that they happened. And that is because they took pigeons to the football matches and then sent the results home by pigeon. So it's strange to think that pigeons made a newspaper. Oh, I'm just going to show you the cat having a little sunbathe there, sitting right next to an owl. Isn't that cute? I don't know if you can see it. Oh. So you can see the sign, Dam Side. And then we have this Victorian School, which was built in 1875, and it was for the children in the area. But by 1960 there wasn't enough children, so the school was actually shut down. Yeah. And now this bridge was built in the 1675 by the Baxters of Edinburgh. Now there's been records of milling in the Water of Leith, in the Dean village, Water of Leith, since the 1100s, when David the First, who was the son of St Margaret, she had several sons that became king, but anyway, he's the one that built a lot of the border abbeys. He actually gifted one of his mills at the Water of Leith to the monks at Holyrood, so where Holyrood Palace is today. So here you can actually see that channel. The last time I did this, because the water was so high we couldn't see it, but we can see the channel where they channel the water in and then take it into the mills to power the wheels. This building just coming into view is the oldest house. Dates back to the late 1600s. You can see the windows are quite small, but as fashions change, once you get into the 1700s, glass becomes more affordable, windows become bigger, so you then alter the state of your windows, so you end up having these big windows at the front. So just like you see, you can, where they've made the windows bigger. And you can see this little sort of cutout on the buildings at the corners, and this is because when horses and carts and things were going past, it wouldn't damage the building. If you've got this cutout, there's no sharp corner for you to knock into and damage the building. And there we have a turnpike staircase. So spiral staircases, very important. Defensively, they were used because they cancel numbers. You can only get one person with a sword up at a time, so it was easy to defend your home. Oh, look at the daffodils. Isn't that gorgeous? You should see this in the summertime. This lady is so good with her plants. She's got it down to a fine art. Right, I'm just going to wait for this man to pass, and then I should be able to hopefully let you see the Hawthorne Bank buildings from this side. Now, as we look at them, these yellow buildings, they only look about 2-3 stories high. But if you're to go around the back of the building, there's a story underneath as well. And then from here, you're getting a lovely view of Well Court again in the clock tower. So no excuse for coming home late. Right. I'm just going to take us back. Really pretty, these flowers. They're gorgeous. I'm not sure what they are though, but they're very pretty. Right. It's reds. And just so you get the idea, we are definitely in a valley. There's some steps taking you up, and there's still a hill to climb after that. Now, this is Bellsbury, just running up the hill. So if you were coming from Princes Street, you would just walk towards the Dean Bridge, which we'll see in a minute, and you just walk down Bellsbury. Now, where these sort of modern houses are, These were offices, there's car parks and all, and now it's accommodation at the top there. This is where Jericho stood, and Jericho was a 6-storey grain storage building. It was huge. So you can imagine it would have been like being in a sort of a canyon almost. Now the church that's just in front of us, this was an Episcopalian church. It is now a Christian centre. So it's no longer an Episcopalian church. But we're hearing the weir now. I'm just going to take us down where we can get a better view of it. And this is the World's End weir. Oh, look at the dog, isn't he gorgeous? So, and the bridge that's just coming into view, that is the Dean Bridge. It's about 106 feet from the top to the bottom. And you can see the bus going over the top. The parapet is actually really high. So this would have been like a massive, really dark canyon. And unfortunately, the Water of Leith in the sort of 1800s, 1800s, was basically an open sewer. Because when they started to put the sewage system in the 1800s, the Victorian period, they put the sewage into the river to flow out at the Water of Leith into the sea, not realising how dangerous that was for health. So you're grinding flour and things with raw sewage, just doesn't even bear thinking about. So yeah, fortunately that's stopped now. Now this little building in front of us, this is Scots Baronial. Scots Baronial architecture is always a favourite. It always comes back. It's actually from the sort of the 1916 or something, round about that period, so it's not that old, this building, but it's sitting on the site of an earlier mill which was 6 stories high. So as we look at the bridge, just above it you can see there's a house, so that's the height that the mill was at. Absolutely huge. Now the bridge is designed by Thomas Telford, and has hollow legs, so somebody has to inspect them every year. It's 106 feet. Now the parapet is very high because in the middle, well, at the beginning of the 1900s, people were having a particularly rough time, and a lot of people were ending their days here. So to make it more difficult, they made the parapet higher, which also means that when you walk along this bridge, you don't realise there's something really interesting below you, because you can't see into the Dean unless you're quite tall. You can't really see into it. So yeah, it's a shame. But when that bridge was built, it really cut the need for the Dean village, because you no longer needed to use their bridge. And the point about the bridge when the Baxters built it was that it gave them passing trade. You know, people had to use that bridge to get across this river, so they had passing trade all the time. But when this bridge was built, that took that away as well. So it was like the kiss of death. Now, when the builder was building the bridge, he actually completed it early, and he asked if he would be given a bonus for completing the bridge early, and he was told no. So he didn't hand the bridge over. He actually kept hold of the bridge until its official date for handover, and he charged people money to walk across it, to be the first people to cross the bridge. So I like his style.